everyone, Nubkeks here, and welcome to my TED Talk. Yes, we're talking about some serious, philosophical issues. Isn't this fun? I'm obviously really into discussing this stuff. Obviously, I'm a streamer, which you probably all know. Most of you probably don't know I do have a master's, actually, in philosophy and politics. So yeah, we're going to be diving into this. Now we've established my credentials. If you want to see, by the way, other fun gimmicks or just stupid things that happen in every single TED Talk, check out this video. I really enjoyed it. It's a really good satire of your typical TED Talk. So yeah, there you are. I'm not wearing my blazer. You got to wear blazers to do a TED Talk, obviously, so people know you're serious, and wear glasses. I thought that was a good one too. But anyway, I'm going to dive into this. We're talking about whether streamers have an obligation not to rage and blame their teammates. And also we're going to talk about the question of elitism. So these are a couple of things that got raised in some of the placement videos. Actually, they get raised continuously through kind of my work here as a streamer. But in particular, this is based off the comment here by Zachary Katstein from the video, Did I Mess Up? So you can check out that if you want to, and you can read the full comment while here on screen. I'm just going to leave it up here. It's not going to be a very visually entertaining video. Sorry about that. But hopefully it will be intellectually interesting. I guess we'll see how if I do a good job or not. All right, so first question is, do streamers have an obligation not to rage and flame their teams on stream? Generally, I think they don't have that obligation, but I think people see it as akin to flaming in chat because you're calling your team out in public. Again, I don't quite agree with that, but you can see how it is a little different than raging in the privacy of your own home. So I think like a quick answer is, I think yes. I think you do have an obligation to a certain degree not to rage and flame, because I think that just generally speaking, certainly in like sort of Western society, right, you generally speaking have an obligation, and obligations can have different strengths and different importances, but I think quite a foundational obligation that we generally have is that you are supposed to be kind to the people around you, or maybe respectful is a better word, right? So, just sort of basic human rights and respectful and just be a generally decent person. That is an obligation. Now, whether people follow that obligation or how strong you think it is or what circumstances it gets waived in, that's quite a big question. And we're not going to we're not obviously going to cover the entirety of that question here in this video. So let's talk more specifically about streamers. I think one good comment that gives us some good context as well, that I, again, often get, another sort of formulation of this, is that it's unprofessional to rage as a streamer. That's unprofessional. I think that is maybe more interesting because you can break it down more easily. What is it? What does it mean to be professional? What is a professional behavior? Obviously, a profession is work that you do, a job you do that you're paid for. That's what a profession is. And what is professional behavior? Well, I think interesting enough, it depends on what the job is, right? I think that's where this gets kind of interesting because, being, let's say, polite and courteous, I think for most professions, for most jobs, that is actually an important part of being professional. Like you're working in an office, it's kind of professional behavior. It is expected that you're polite and respectful to the other people you're working with in the office, to anyone that you're talking to on the phone, to your bosses, to the people, your customers, whatever. That's pretty standard. I think it is for most jobs, right? That being said, it's not the case for all jobs. So whereas let's say an air hostess, it's very important, it's kind of a crucial, mandatory aspect of being a professional as an air hostess, that you are kind and courteous to everybody. Let's say if you're an MMA fighter, well, in that case, being a professional, that's definitely not part of the job description. It's not what's expected of you. In fact, I'd say probably to a large degree, being a professional MMA fighter, you're almost expected to do a certain amount of shit talking, and you're supposed to project a certain amount of ego, or at least certainly maybe it's not an obligation, but it's quite common and it's fairly expected of that type of job. That's just what's done, right? So there are different professional standards. What about streaming? Well, I certainly think when it comes to streaming, to give a fun example, I mean, let's say you're watching a Call of Duty streamer and he gets like shot and killed on stream. You know, if that streamer reacts and goes like, "You fucking motherfucker, can't believe you fucking did that," you're probably not going to bat an eye, or you'll find it quite funny. You know, you could see the comedic effect of that. Whereas, again, if you're on an airplane and somebody spills a drink on the floor and the air hostess turns around and goes, "You fucking motherfucker, I can't believe you fucking did that," you know, a few eyebrows would be raised, right? Because there's different contexts and different professional standards, etc. So I think with streamers, yeah, like what are your obligations? How should you act? And this is what I think is important. I think with streaming, I think there's really a wide variety of things that you're trying to do. There's a wide variety of types of streamer and types of stream. I think probably the broadest category is that they're supposed to be entertaining. It's supposed to be entertainment. It's quite like a TV show, you know, or it's quite like acting in a lot of ways. Like a lot of streamers will, you know, have a persona or project a persona, or at least they're an exaggerated, overly dramatic version of themselves. I mean, I think that's certainly true of me, and I wouldn't even consider myself to be very much that type of streamer. I'm quite a realistic streamer. Like, I'm pretty much being myself, but obviously I'm being, you know, I'm a more extroverted and vastly more exaggerated version of myself. Because that's just kind of what you do. It's the same thing as, you know, the person you are at home versus the person you are if you're out at, you know, a party. You know, you're going to project yourselves in different kinds of ways. But broadly speaking, I think a lot of streamers are there for entertainment, and for entertainment's purposes. Again, much like someone being a douchebag on a TV show, you kind of go, okay, well, you know, you don't like that person being a douchebag, but you still understand that it is a show and it's entertainment, and you can kind of enjoy it and find it funny or insightful or etc. in that sort of way. I will say this as well. I think this is really important too, is that I think market demand as well is kind of a crucial thing here. Like for me personally, if I was to watch a stream where it's just the purpose of the stream is just to rage and flame for the sake of raging and flaming, I wouldn't actually enjoy that stream. I wouldn't watch it. And I think the same is true probably for most people. I can't see that being a very big market, though I do think there is a market for it. And honestly, I probably wouldn't really object to it if somebody wants to make that kind of stream. For me, I'm quite liberal in terms of, for the most part, let people do what they want unless there's a very strong reason not to. I kind of say let them at it and let them go for it. But I think generally speaking, that's not the case. I will say for my stream personally, you know, as a salty streamer, when I play HOTS most of the time, you know, when I'm getting salty or I'm raging about something, sometimes it is coming from frustration, but then oftentimes, and as well, it's very much exaggerated, I'm going to rage about, you know, someone like makes a really terrible play. I might rage and go like, "Oh, why the hell would you do that? That's like crazy. Why would you walk into that bush when 5 of the enemy team were clearly there? You fucking idiot. You're a moron." And it's not coming from a place of just pure rage made up from no position. It's there's supposed to be a lot of comedy in it. It's supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be relatable. And for me as well, an important part of like what I rage about or give out about is also supposed to be instructional. So it's kind of like an entertaining way to teach, if you think about it like that. You know, very, very rarely, I think you'll find situations where I'm giving out about something and you go like, "What's he talking about? That's made up." And for me, that's important for what I do. And I think because I'm often so salty, I will say for my stuff, I think that also makes it, you know, a bit more normal. Like if you tune into the stream and go like, "Oh, Nubkeks is raging at me and what I did in this game," you're probably not going to be, hopefully, that offended, because you go, well, Nubkeks will, you know, he'll rage about every mistake, but he's trying to make a point and it's supposed to be informative. I think it's not for everybody. Some people will hate it. Some people really won't like it, but then some people really do like it. And they find it useful, or I mean, like I got several comments on that video, and some people saying, you know, it's hilarious, or it's cathartic, or it's like I learn a lot from it, you know. And those are the sort of things that I try to cater to and try to do. I don't think I always necessarily hit the nail on the head, but that's the general purpose. That's generally what I aim for, and when I do it well, I think it's very good. when I mess up and I think I don't do a good job of it, I think it's not very good content. But that's just the way it is. It's not always going to be perfect. So, do streamers have an obligation not to rage and flame their teams on stream? Well, I think, like I said, everybody has, a certain obligation to be respectful and kind to each other. But for streamers in particular, and for like other people working as like, comedians or entertainers, etc., we can just draw a distinction that certain things are exaggerated, etc., for the purpose of entertainment or instruction or what have you. And that then if it's done in a proper way, I think that it's actually totally fine. In fact, doesn't even contradict that first obligation. But it has to be done properly. It has to be done well. Let's put it like that. It does have to be done well. But even more so, I think even just purely for the purpose of entertainment, if somebody just wants to be just raging all the time and it's just a rage stream, and you could even just watch the stream because it's funny to watch someone be miserable and rage, then I think that's fine too. All right, question number 2 then. The question of elitism. Many of the comments in the video, even some on this video, are responding strongly to the idea. The video was the Placement Game 2, which is a Deathwing game. And then this video is this one, the Did I Mess Up one. Are responding strongly to the idea that higher ranked players are inherently better than lower ranked players. This might seem like an odd thing to argue about, as this is what ranking is supposed to show. Yes, yeah, I think there may be a difference in assumptions here. I believe you've accepted the premise that higher ranked players, or the premise that higher ranked players, especially significantly higher, like number 10 GM, or even the Gold 4 versus Plat 1 example, that's an example I gave, are more knowledgeable about or are better at the game than lower ranked players. Again, I feel like this is a reasonable premise to assume, not one that is universally accepted. There's a comment below that said you made his skin crawl by saying GM number 10 is unquestionably better than the low masters or high diamond players. Some kind of discussion about humility and learning from people who are better in the game than you might be nice. I remember when you got to play with pros, some pros, you were pointing out that their good plays. I was pointing out their good plays and trying to keep up with them. Yeah, okay, so for sure. All right, there's a lot to break down here. It's a pretty big one. Let me try to do it in at least make 2 or 3 points that are worthwhile in a relatively succinct manner here. Okay. So, first of all, let's dive into it. So, just to establish from a default, I think that 100%, higher ranked players are better than lower ranked players. Yes, that is true. Like, that is literally the definition of the rankings. That's what it means. I think that there can be certain exceptions to that, of course, but I think that the prevalence of those exceptions is greatly exaggerated. Okay, let me actually make a pretty harsh argument here, a pretty offensive argument, because I think it's interesting and make a good debate. So let's go with this, right? I think that people, when someone stands up and they say that, I think that there's no skill difference between a grandmaster and a diamond, or a diamond and a gold. It's all made up. It's just pure luck. Or again, you could have things like, I should be grandmaster, but I'm stuck in silver because my gosh darn teammates. This game is so unfair, but really I deserve to be there. That sort of thing. I think that oftentimes, or most of the time, that this is coming from a place of weak self-esteem or weak mechanisms for dealing with self-esteem issues, and just sort of self-regulating, that sort of thing. I think that generally speaking, of course, we like being good at things, and we like to be recognized for being good at things as well. And that's kind of what we spend a lot of our lives striving to do. So I think then when you turn around and let's say you play HOTS, and so you go into ranked and you think, man, I'm really good. And then you go in and you play and you end up, let's say you get placed or you're in gold 4. And then if you think that gold 4 isn't very good, that can feel pretty bad for you because you want to be good at something. And then if you're told that you're bad, that can be pretty hurtful. And then you start to twist reality so that it doesn't feel so bad for you anymore. And I think that's exactly what's happening here in this sort of circumstance, in fact, which is that I think it's just reality. It's just basic common sense that yes, a grandmaster player is better than a master player. A master player is better than a diamond's better than platinum, and so on and so forth. And that in the majority of circumstances that this is true. And I think the only reason to really deny this is because you don't like feeling that you're not the best, and therefore you have to sort of deny this whole ranking system has any value whatsoever. Essentially, you're sort of just bringing everyone above you down so that you don't have to feel bad. I think that's actually what a lot of what is happening here. People aren't comfortable with this idea. I think it's actually, you know, I think this is more, if you apply it more generally, I think it is sort of generally as well a problem with society at large. I think it's one of the cultural flaws of like our current time period for sure. It's interesting then, you know, just this idea of elitism. So if I compare it, let's say to, like, if you could, I think of a traditional virtue, like, okay, for example, so let's say courage. All right, so courage is good. Courage is you're willing to take risks. You're willing to face danger when it's important to do so, when it really matters. If you don't have enough courage, it's cowardice, right? That's you're not willing to take the risks. You're too scared to take the risk when you should take that risk. But too much courage at the same time, having too much of that, that's recklessness, right? Which is that you're going to engage in risks that have like no real reward, or it doesn't make really any sense to do so. So let's say you're a firefighter. Okay, good example of courage being very important. You know, like a courageous firefighter would run into a burning building to save somebody. You know, a coward, if you got cowardice instead, if you don't have enough courage, a firefighter might, you know, just back out and not actually do their job and let that person die. Whereas then a reckless firefighter, you know, you might be looking at this building and going, you know, all the other firefighters like, dude, don't go in there. It's like the building's on the verge of collapse. It's not safe. We just have to, you know, we can't do anything. And then the firefighter rushes in anyway, and the building collapses and he dies, and the person he was trying to save dies, and it's all a big mess. And suddenly, you know, the town is down one firefighter the next time a fire comes out. It's reckless. It's not good. I think elitism is something like that too. I mean, like you can, this is the case for like most sort of virtues as well. Most of these traditional virtues. So like if you look at kindness, for example, or like love, it's obviously a good thing to be kind or loving. Not having enough of that, you're cruel or callous or cold. Having too much is like being like clingy or smothering, right? I think when you come to elitism as well, I think there's probably a similar thing going on. I can't really think of words that fit this idea, right? But I think certainly elitism is much like that. I guess elitism would be the word to describe having too much, but it's something like having an appreciation for skill or for talent or for authority or something like that. So, you know, it's like okay, here's a good example, actually. It's like your car breaks down, okay? And you're like, shit, how do I deal with my car breaking down? So having the right amount of I don't know, elitism or something is like you open up the phone book and you're like, let's call a mechanic. Not having enough would be going, let's open up the phone book. Let's just pick somebody at random and see what they say about fixing the car. You know, it's like, well, it doesn't make any sense, right? You obviously want to call somebody who knows what they're talking about. And then having too much, like the elitist thing, might be, you know, the person that you're driving with goes, oh, actually, I think I know how to fix this. And then you turn around and go, well, are you a mechanic? No. Well, okay, I'm not listening to you then. Shut up. I'm calling mechanic. I don't want to hear what you have to say, right? So I think that probably illustrates, I think, fairly well, sort of the idea here. So I certainly think that, you know, denying that people of higher rank are better is sort of the second is you know, picking a random person from the phone book. It's you're divorced from reality. It's actually not good for someone to be that way. Now I think completely denying all value from what someone lower rank has to say is not wise either. I think you should attribute, you know, game knowledge appropriate to the person's rank. So you say, okay, well, someone silver, they might have a couple of little tips, probably not that much, but a little bit. Someone in gold, okay, they probably have a few better insights. And then someone in platinum has got better insights again, etc., etc. And, you know, just attribute it fairly and properly as is appropriate. I think that's what you want to do. I thought this was an interesting example as well. So the premise that higher ranked players are more knowledgeable or better than lower ranked players, because I think with this video in particular, we're talking about a GM. So I think if you compare the example that I gave, a counter example, or not counter example, but like an attendant example, like another example, I think the second example actually is, there's one important flaw in it, right? So Gold 4 versus Platinum 1, you can actually get into Platinum 1, for example, with relatively few games. Like I was literally, I think today, the day I'm recording this, which by the way, I'll record my thoughts on these questions tomorrow, 3 days ago. I'm very honest and very diligent person. Yes, that's one virtue I'm missing, which is like working hard. But yeah, like today though, there's a video coming out, which is me playing some games on my American account. And I think my American account has like maybe 20 or 30 ranked games played lifetime. And I think it's in like Platinum 2 now. So that's like very few games to actually get there. You could, in theory, or certainly it's, you know, it's possible that somebody who is supposed to be in Gold 4 could, with just a little bit of luck, because it's a very small number of games, could end up in Platinum 1, and that throws this sort of ranking thing off. That being said, what the original thing was, which was making somebody's skin crawl, was talking about GM number 10. So that doesn't work, because you can't play 30 lifetime ranked games and end up GM number 10. It actually requires a lot of games, because you need a lot of points, and you only get so many when you initially place. You need to earn a lot. So I think it's actually even more stark that, you know, whereas you could argue that, okay, potentially there is I think it's a small potential. I think it's small, and it doesn't happen half as often as people like to think it does, that you could have somebody in Platinum that should really be in Gold. I think certainly when you come to like GM number 10, it's, you know, okay, maybe they should have peaked at GM number 50 or something, but they almost definitely deserve to be there because they played so many games. It's going to filter that stuff out. So I think that is important there. So yeah, that's just something to note. But like I said, I feel like the, you know, thinking that people are misplaced, etc., I think that is something that, again, is very much exaggerated, because it kind of gives you an easy out. It gives you an easy excuse for why you're not ranked better. And again, I think being upset by that also ironically illustrates that you do think that the ranking actually matters, because if it didn't matter, you wouldn't be particularly upset that you are in whatever rank that you happen to be. So yeah, anyway, in other words, I think it's important to have the right level of elitism. It's, you know, you don't want to completely, absolutely reject everything that anyone else says, but you want to, you know, you want to just generally assume that, okay, generally speaking, if I'm Gold and I'm playing with someone Platinum, all right, I should probably assume that they're better at the game than me, and that's, you know, that's totally fine. I don't really see, that's just common sense, really, isn't it? Or if I'm in Gold and I'm playing with someone in Silver, I can generally accept that I'm better than they are. It's fine, no big deal. I think when we looked at this particular video, for example, I was getting pissed off in this video because we did have like the Chromie was giving out about the Samuro. So Samuro was like GM number 10, I think, in this case. Chromie was like a high diamond, low masters player. And I was saying Chromie should not be going into chat and telling Samuro that he sucks and complaining about him. Which, again, I stand by. Obviously, you shouldn't be going into chat and complaining about people in the first place. And you certainly shouldn't do that. It's such a waste of your time to do that. If you are like high diamond, low masters, you should not, and you get in a game with the GM, for the course of that game, you should just assume that they know better and attempt to learn from that. And that's just common sense, to be honest with you. And again, when we looked at the video, and you can see the breakdown of it if you didn't actually watch it, you can see that's exactly what happened, is the Chromie was shit-talking this Samuro and telling him how much he sucked. We went back, we watched the Samuro, the Samuro POV, we looked at all the plays he made, and like literally he was going around like solo picking up kills and rotating, and like he literally played the bit that Chromie was giving out about. Basically pixel perfect. So it kind of proved the point in that sense. But yeah, I think it is important, you know, just some general acceptance I think is worthwhile, you know. Yeah, like it's a funny thing, like especially when it comes down to things like that, it's a big societal problem, like I said. Just to leave you with this one. So I think a great example of it is people like to, a very common thing that you see is this belief that there's like no such thing as talent, that it's there's only skill, it's all learned. It's essentially tabula rasa, the blank slate. That you're born, you are a blank slate. Basically, everyone is born exactly, completely the same. There's no inherent differences at all. And that it's all what you do and it's all the skills that you learn. So that's an extremely, extremely popular and widespread belief. I'm sure you guys have heard that before. There's no such thing as talent. It's all about your hard work and what you learn. And the extraordinary thing about that, of course, again, I think it's an example of what I'm talking about here. It's that lack of an important, actually, like a tribute to have, which is like discerning skill and the importance of that, and sort of acknowledgement and acceptance of reality. I think because it's this idea of tabula rasa is just obviously wrong. It's something that you should probably have learned when you were a child. Like when you're 7 years old and you're sitting in maths class or something. You're sitting in like French class, and you're struggling to learn the language, or you're struggling to learn algebra. You probably don't do algebra when you're 7. You're struggling to learn multiplication, or it's like Jean sitting beside you is fucking flying at it. She's learning it all in no time whatsoever. She's picking it up super quick. It's not because Jean is working harder. It's not because you are lazy or you're not putting any work in. You could in fact be working harder than her. It's just that when it comes to let's say like language intelligence, that she's just smarter when it comes to languages than you are. Either she has she learns it faster than you do, or she has a higher skill cap, a higher skill floor. And that's just reality. That's just the way it is. And I think that I think that the reason that people are so attracted by this idea of like no talent doesn't exist, even when it's completely nonsensical, is because they are, again, I think it comes down to like a fear of the conclusions, and it comes down to a rejection of what those potential conclusions could mean because of a very rigid sort of moral scope, again, particularly pertaining to like an idea of equality. Here's okay, I can make this even more controversial. Let's fucking go. Okay, it's like I think a really good example of it would be like, let's say that you are a scientist. Let's look at gender differences, right? Here's the super controversial and super relevant thing, because it's such a big debate. Like, are there any differences between the genders? If you are a scientist and you're trying to work on that, if you want to do research on it, like if you went, and this is the sad truth, right? If you went to like a university, like right now, as like a PhD, like as a tenured professor, and you were like, I want to pursue my research because I believe that I can find specific, I believe that there is good example of gender differences. They'll probably be shut down. They'll probably be really strongly discouraged. Even if you actually did have examples, like you came and said, I've actually studied it. Women are actually better than men. I can prove it. That's something that people would reject. Why? Not because they read the research and actually look into it and think about it and examine it scientifically and factually, but because they're uncomfortable with the conclusions that they would draw, and probably mistakenly draw from it as well. But yeah, there you go. Lots of food for thought there. Woo! Cool. Bit of controversy. Stir the pot right at the end. Make more money with good engagements. Like, comment, subscribe, all that. But yeah, hopefully you found that interesting, guys, anyway. And I'm always willing to chat to you guys and have fun discussions and stuff on stream. So yeah, I'll see you there. Thanks for watching. And thanks to Zachary as well for this comment. I thought it was a really fun one. I really enjoyed it. And I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.